Hello, everybody. My name is Tyler Russo, and this is the KO Podcast, episode number 27. In this episode, I will be reviewing UFC Fight Night Strickland vs. Imavov, and I will be previewing the first pay-per-view of 2023. That is UFC 283, and that is from Brazil. The UFC has not been to Brazil, I believe, since 2020, so it's been a long time coming. Ring that bell. All right, let's get into the first UFC Fight Night card of 2023. A pretty entertaining card overall, although not the biggest names on it. We started the night in the flyweight division, and Charles Johnson gets the TKO finish over Jimmy Flick. We move on to another flyweight bout that I want to highlight. We had Alan Nascimento taking on Carlos Hernandez, and Nascimento gets the standing rear naked choke. Very impressive rear naked choke win for Nascimento. We had a middleweight bout between Claudio Ribeiro and Abdul Rassan Al-Hassan, and Al-Hassan gets the vicious KO finish. Very entertaining fight for as long as it lasted. It lasted into the second round, just 28 seconds in. Really entertaining fight. Moving on, we had a bantamweight bout. We had Javid Basharat taking on Mathis Mendokana, and Javid Basharat gets the decision victory, and he seems to get the last laugh in the if you saw the weigh-ins, Mendokana, a little testy at the stare down, I should say, not the weigh-ins, but Javid Basharat gets the last laugh. Moving on to the main card, we had Umar Nurmagomedov getting a KO finish over Rakhani Barcelos. And Umar Nurmagomedov, man, that was a vicious KO. He slept him with, I believe it was a right hook. And man, he was out before he hit the canvas. The next fight was a women's bantamweight bout. Caitlin Vieira versus Raquel Pennington, and Raquel Pennington gets the decision victory. Big win for her. She should move up in the women's bantamweight ranks, and she may just be a fight away from, challenging for that belt once again. We will have to see how the division shapes out. Amanda Nunes is set to defend her belt, so we have to see how that goes. Moving on, we had a middleweight bout. We had Pune Soriano taking on Roman Kaplaksov. I believe that's how you say his last name. And Roman Kaplaksov gets the finish. Really fun stand-up fight all the way through. Both of these guys were, gonna go down swinging. Very entertaining fight. Moving on, the co-main event of this card, we had a featherweight bout. We had Dan Ige taking on Damian Jackson, and Dan Ige with the walk-off KO in round number 2. Man, Dan Ige, when he connects, he is a highlight machine. I mean, his last win before this was a KO win against Gavin Tucker. Now, he had a couple losses in a row. Now he's back in the win column with a walk-off KO, as I said. Brutal KO. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It is worth a watch. Moving on to the main event of the evening. It was a light heavyweight bout. Obviously, the original main event for this card was a middleweight bout, but it had to be scrapped because Kelvin Gastelum had a mouth injury. So Sean Strickland comes in, and he ended the year. He ended last year, and he begins this year. The only difference is he picks up a decision victory over Nassourdine Imavov. And, Sean Strickland, I had him losing the first couple rounds, but, rounds 3, 4, and 5, I believe he won. He gets a win to start off his 2023 run. Big win for him, really. He would have dropped, I believe, 3 in a row if he lost this one. So, big win for Sean Strickland. Who knows when we will see him again? We could see him in a couple of weeks. Who knows? He fights all the time. Now, let's move on to the pay-per-view in Brazil. UFC 283. Super pumped for this card. It looks like there's a lot of great fights on this card. So let's just dive into this event. Just want to point out we do have a women's featherweight bout. Women's featherweight fights don't come around often in the UFC. The division's very stagnant. There's still no ranking except for the fact that Amanda Nunes is the champion of this division. This division's been frozen for a while. Actually, I don't even know if it ever started. But anyways, let's get to some of these other fights. We got a welterweight bout. We have Warley Alves taking on Nicholas Dalby. We have a lightweight bout. We have Ismail Bonfim taking on Terrence McKinney. And what can I say about Terrence McKinney? He is a highlight reel every time he steps in the octagon. He's a young star in this lightweight division. The UFC lightweight division is so tough. So definitely it's one of the tougher divisions to stand out in. And he's stood out big time, for me at least, in this lightweight division. He's still a young prospect, but Ismail Bonfim, he's going to be a big challenge for McKinney. So I am so excited for this lightweight fight. Don't miss this fight. This is going to be action-packed from start to finish. Moving on, we have a bantamweight bout. We have Lunin Lorsada taking on Cody Stanman. And we have a heavyweight bout. We have Shamil Abdurrahmov taking on Jolton Almeida. Jolton Almeida, he's fought a couple catchweight bouts. He's moved around from heavyweight to light heavyweight. It seems now that he is going to stay at heavyweight. So very excited to see Almeida. He's a big prospect for this heavyweight division. And moving on to the prelim card, we have the other Bonfim brother, Gabriel, taking on Manor Lazez. And, Gabriel Bonfim, he is a welterweight. His brother's a lightweight, so a little bit heavier than his brother, but he's 13-0. So definitely a match up to keep your eye on. Moving on, we have a lightweight bout. We got Thiago Moses taking on Malquez Costa. Moving on, we have a middleweight bout. We have Gregory Rodriguez taking on Bruno Ferreira. Gregory Rodriguez, man, his last fight was insane. He had a nasty, nasty cut in between his eyebrows. His forehead just exploded, really. He still won that fight, as bloody as he was. But this guy's tough. He's called RoboCop for a reason. Seems like he can walk through anything and keep swinging. So very excited to see this fight. And in the next bout, this is going to be a interesting fight. It is a light heavyweight bout. We have Mauricio Shogun Rua taking on Ihor Pretoria, and this will be Mauricio Rua's last fight. Such a legend of the sport. I mean, he fought in Pride, former UFC light heavyweight champ, just a big figure in the mixed martial arts community. It's great that he's going to be able to retire in Brazil, which is his home country. I hope he goes out with a very good fight. He had a really boring fight, his last fight against Ovince St. Prude. It was a split decision loss for Mauricio Rua. So I hope it's not a boring fight. I hope it's an action-packed fight. I hope he gets a great send-off by the Brazilian crowd. So that fight is definitely going to be one that you don't want to miss. Has a lot of significance to the sport of mixed martial arts. Now, let's move on to this main card. The first bout is a light heavyweight bout. We got Paul Craig taking on Johnny Walker. This is going to be a really interesting matchup. Paul Craig, he has an interesting strategy. His last fight, I don't know if he's going to have the same exact game plan, because in his last fight, Craig, he just kind of rolled, rolled and tried to get the leg of his opponent. He took a lot of shots trying to get to it. He's not afraid to go off of his back. But again, if his opponent has good ground and pound, that's where you can get in trouble. If he's just laying on his back, trying to get Walker in a submission, I don't know if that's going to be his best route to victory. I mean, Walker is a very explosive stand-up guy, so maybe Craig's going to probably try to take him down. He's not going to want to stand with Walker for too long. Walker has really good kicks. He's lengthy. So Craig is definitely going to probably, try to get a takedown, try to get some type of submission game going. But I really hope he doesn't try to roll around too much, because I just don't think he's going to win and doing that. I mean, Craig has pulled off some great submissions, so I just hope that he doesn't overdo it with the Amari rolls and just kind of rolling around a lot, trying to catch a limb of any sort, because I believe he is going to get stopped if he tries to do that too much with Johnny Walker. Moving on, we have a women's flyweight bout. We have Lauren Murphy taking on Jessica Andrade. Lauren Murphy had a huge and a very impressive victory over Miesha Tate in her last fight, but I just don't see her beating Jessica Andrade. Jessica Andrade is so strong for this women's flyweight division. She's got power. She has great submission skills, and she's going to have that crowd behind her. I just feel like Jessica Andrade is going to be a bulldozer, and I just feel like she's going to be a little bit too strong and a little bit too much for Lauren Murphy. Moving on, we have a welterweight bout. We have Gilbert Burns taking on Neil Magny. Obviously, Gilbert Burns is coming off of his Chimaev fight. Amazing fight. He obviously lost that one, but his stock seemed to rise, or, kind of be in the same area. I believe that he shouldn't have dropped too much after that fight. It was a great fight from both guys. He just did not get the decision nod. Neil Magny, of course, he'll fight anybody in the welterweight division, or in the UFC for that matter. So the big factor in this is really going to be Gilbert Burns' stand-up game. How often can he hurt Neil Magny on the feet? I mean, Gilbert Burns has really good grappling. He's got a good submission game, but I feel that Gilbert Burns, he can definitely hurt Neil Magny on the feet. Neil Magny, I don't think that Neil Magny has the power to hurt Burns on the feet. I think that's going to be the big difference here. Neil Magny is going to want to take this to the ground. He's going to want to grind on Burns. He's going to want to get him tired, put him up against the cage, lean on him, carry his body weight. But I see Burns coming out on top in this one. Moving on, we get a big co-main event. It is for the flyweight title. We got the champ, Davison Figueiredo, taking on the former champ, the interim champ, and the challenger, Brandon Moreno. This is the fourth fight between them. I said fourth, not third, fourth fight. Yes. These guys have spent, their primes fighting each other since 2020. Their first fight was a draw. Brandon Moreno won their second fight, and Davison Figueiredo won their third fight. So this is going to be interesting. These two men have been carrying the flyweight division on their back for the past 3 years. It seems like they are obviously the two biggest flyweights in the organization. Brandon Moreno, obviously such a likable guy. Figueiredo is a little bit more intense, but, these guys, it's just like a chess match every time they fight. I'm not really sure who's going to win. I'm going to think on it a little bit more. I'll post the whole card, and I'll post my predictions on my Twitter, which I usually do for my Twitter and my Instagram, and I usually do that for every card. But yeah, this is going to be a good fight. Let's just hope it doesn't go to another draw, because they're probably going to have to fight for a fifth time if it does go to a draw. Moving on to the main event of the card, it is a light heavyweight bout. We have Glover Teixeira taking on Jamal Sweet Dreams Hill. Now, it's very interesting how we even got to this point in the light heavyweight division. So let's rewind about a month back. Jan Blachowicz versus Ante Kalaev. That fight goes to a draw. I thought Ankalaev did enough to win that fight. Both of those guys are screwed out of out of winning the title, or out of just having some sort of resolve to the fight. The division doesn't move at all after that fight. Like I said, it's a draw. Both of those guys, I believe they both got, screwed from this booking. I'm not mad at the two fighters, but I mean, the UFC, I don't know, maybe they should have rebooked that fight, but it seemed like Dana wasn't very interested in seeing that fight again. So both of those guys, obviously, their champion aspirations are on hold right now, and they're looking at who is going to win this light heavyweight main event. So obviously, Glover Teixeira, the former light heavyweight champ, he has the grappling advantage, I believe, by a lot. He's got the clinch advantage by a lot. If he gets on top of Jamal Hill and ground and pounds, the fight's going to end. Glover Teixeira, whenever he gets on top of anybody and starts to throw ground and pound, that's really going to spell the end for them. He's got good stand-up. The only way I can see Jamal Hill really kind of winning this fight is jumping on Glover maybe early in the first, that first round, putting the pressure on Glover and really making the rest of this fight a grinding dog fight of a match. Try to really grind on Glover. Try to maybe work some leg kicks in. Because just Glover's really well-rounded, and I know Jamal Hill. I know he knows what I know he has good grappling, obviously, but I mean Teixeira, he's got so much more experience on the ground. I just feel that he's just the more complete fighter. I'm a huge fan of Jamal Hill. He's got a lot of power. He puts people to sleep. That's why he's called Sweet Dreams. I love that nickname for him. If Glover wins this, it's going to be interesting to see how the light heavyweight division reacts. If Jamal Hill wins this, that would be interesting. I believe Hill is the betting favorite. I would take Teixeira all day on this. I just think that's the safe bet. But it would shake up the division if Jamal Hill did win this. And, he's a great personality. I love how he carries himself. So, let's hope both of these fighters, let's just hope this is a great main event. Let's hope that we can kick off 2022 with a great pay-per-view. And obviously, after the UFC fight night, a lot of big news hit. John Jones versus Ciryl Gane for the heavyweight title is official. That will take place in March, I believe. And the current heavyweight champ of the UFC fought out his contract. Dana said he got released, but to be honest, he just fought out his contract, and they couldn't come to terms on another one. Francis Ngannou is no longer in the UFC. He's not under contract. They're going to waive their right to match any offers or whatever. So Francis Ngannou is a free agent. I know, crazy to think about that. But they couldn't come to a deal. They tried to throw a bunch of money at him. And credit to Francis Ngannou, he didn't just take the money. He wanted other things to go with it. He was the champion. He thought he had some type of leverage kind of over the UFC. And I just want to kind of read what he asked for, and it's really commendable because I think the UFC, they offered Ngannou, the same range in money as Brock Lesnar reportedly made at UFC 200, which was around $8 million, which is insane money to make in this mixed martial arts sport. But it's commendable he gave up that money because, he asked for other things. So let's see, I just want to go over, this is straight from Francis Ngannou. This is a quote from him that I'm reading. This was on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. Ngannou said, "I asked for a lot of things, which doesn't mean I was expecting all of those things. I was expecting at least one or two of those things. I asked for the right of a sponsorship, which we've been ripped off of," which is true. They've been in exclusive clothing deals with Reebok and now with Venom. I asked for the right of a sponsorship, which I already read that. And here's another one that's very important and commendable. I asked for health insurance. I couldn't have it. Health insurance, a big thing that I think people don't talk about enough. These fighters, from what I know, they pay out of pocket for all of their medical expenses and things like that, and therapy. And these men and women are breaking bones, breaking their faces, truly. And I definitely believe that they should have some type of health care, paid for by the UFC. Apparently the UFC is billions and billions of dollars and the highest revenues and things like that, but it doesn't seem like the fighters are necessarily really helped with all of these billions and billions of dollars that the UFC is apparently raking in. So that was another request that they would not give Francis Ngannou. Another request of his was I asked for a fighter advocate, somebody in the board meeting who would advocate for fighters. Again, I think that's an amazing idea. They said no to it, of course. Francis's heart is in the right place. Seems like such a good person at heart. He's the scariest man on the planet when the cage locks. But other than that, he was really just trying to set a precedent for other fighters to get these same things met. And I think the UFC didn't want to do it because they knew that if they do it for him, they're going to have to start doing it for a lot of their other champions. And eventually the trickle-down effect would be everybody would get those benefits. And that's more money the UFC is spending on whatever benefits that they agreed on with the fighters or whatnot. So, just kind of a shame that they couldn't do any of these things, really. I understand the sponsorships. That was kind of a gimme. They have a locked-in deal with Venom. But yeah, the fighter at the board meetings could definitely be done. They could have met that demand, and it's just kind of sad that they couldn't come to an agreement, because I think Francis Ngannou is the best heavyweight in the world right now. Obviously, when John Jones finally steps into this cage as a heavyweight, we will see if he is, a top heavyweight in the world. Obviously, he's a legend. He's a future Hall of Famer. But this card, this John Jones Ciryl Gane card, is supposed to take place in Las Vegas. So let's see if John Jones can last a week in Las Vegas without doing something horrible. Because John Jones never works out in Vegas. So let's see if he can even get into the cage with everything that's happened in his out of fighting life. So I'm very excited for the John Jones fight. I just wish that they could get that deal done with Francis Ngannou and, have Francis versus John Jones. I think that's the heavyweight fight everybody wanted. And also, Dana dropped another little nugget that, John Jones is now the highest paid heavyweight in UFC history, I believe. He signed a new 8-fight deal. So, John Jones, he's locked in for the long term. That's just something that Francis Ngannou didn't want to be. He did not want to be locked into a contract. He wanted to go box. He wanted to be free. And he knew that if he signed this new contract that he was going to be locked in, to the UFC for probably the rest of his fighting career. And he didn't want that. And, you got to respect him for going in a different direction. A lot of people would have just taken the money and, they would have just shut up about everything else. But Francis did not do that. And that's very commendable of him for asking for all those other things other than just the money. The UFC was just trying to throw money at him. And, he didn't just take the money. So much respect to Francis Ngannou. And that is going to do it for this episode of the KO Podcast. The Twitter, if you want to find me on Twitter, just look up the KO Podcast with Tyler Russo. I am most active on Twitter, so definitely, interact with me on Twitter. Love to hear everybody's thoughts. Also, the Instagram page is the KO_podcast. And if you want to find the podcast on YouTube, just type in the KO Podcast with Tyler Russo. I hope you all have a blessed rest of your day. Stay safe. Bye bye.